Before Elon Musk, before Jeff Bezos, before the world even knew what a billionaire was, there was one man who redefined money itself. His name was John D. Rockefeller. He didn't just build an oil empire, he bought America. Born in 1839 in a small town in New York, Rockefeller entered a world that was raw, poor, and full of promise. His father was a traveling salesman, charming, manipulative, and often missing. A man who called himself a botanic physician, but was really just a con artist selling fake cures door to door. From him, young John learned a cold lesson: never trust anyone, and never leave money on the table. His mother, by contrast, was devout, practical, and painfully frugal. She taught John to work hard, save every cent, and pray. The boy who would become the richest man in history grew up in a house where faith met fraud, where silence was safer than trust, and where money was not just a goal, it was survival. At 16, Rockefeller got his first job as a bookkeeper. From the start, he was obsessed with numbers, order, and control. He recorded every penny he spent, even 5 cents for a broom. By 20, he wasn't dreaming of success. He was engineering it. Then came oil. In the 1860s, America discovered oil in Pennsylvania. The rush began. Everyone wanted to drill, dig, and strike it rich. But Rockefeller didn't chase oil. He refined it. He saw chaos, leaking barrels, unstable prices, wild speculators, and he saw an opportunity to bring order on his terms. He founded a refinery in Cleveland, quietly, carefully, and in 1870, he created Standard Oil. It started small, and then it consumed everything. Rockefeller didn't compete. He eradicated. He cut prices until his rivals bled losses. He negotiated secret deals with railroads to transport his oil cheaper than anyone else. He used spies to infiltrate other companies. He bought barrels, saws, warehouses, pipelines, and then entire competitors. When someone refused to sell, he'd crush them with lower prices and buy them for pennies. One oil man said, "He comes and tells you that you must sell out, and he makes you feel that he'll ruin you if you don't." By 1882, Rockefeller controlled over 90% of America's oil refining. His influence extended into railroads, banks, shipping, and even politics. But no one could see the full picture, because he had invented something new: the trust. A complex web of fake company names and front men, all secretly controlled by Rockefeller. He didn't just create the modern corporation. He created the blueprint for monopoly. Journalists called him the octopus. Politicians feared him. And the public, they hated him. He stopped appearing in public. He stopped giving interviews. He developed alopecia from stress and lost all his hair. He wore wigs and carried umbrellas to hide from cameras. But through it all, the money kept growing. By the dawn of the 20th century, Rockefeller was the most powerful man in the United States. In 1911, the U.S. Supreme Court finally acted. Standard Oil was ruled an illegal monopoly and was broken into 34 separate companies. Many thought Rockefeller had lost. They were wrong. He owned stock in every one of the new companies. When they split, the value of his shares doubled. Companies like Exxon, Mobil, Chevron, they were born from the shattered pieces of Standard Oil. Rockefeller hadn't been defeated. He had multiplied. In 1916, he became the world's first billionaire. But then, something shifted. The man who had built an empire of silence and steel began to give it away. He donated over $500 million in his lifetime. He funded medical research that wiped out diseases. He built the University of Chicago. He supported public health, science, and education across the globe. Some called it redemption. Others called it strategy. But Rockefeller believed it was his duty, that wealth once acquired must serve something greater. He said, "The best philanthropy is not just giving money away, it's solving problems at their source." He lived to be 97 years old. He saw the Civil War, the rise of railroads, the Great Depression, and the birth of modern capitalism. And when he died in 1937, He left behind more than a fortune. He left behind a system, a model of ruthless efficiency, a legacy of wealth without mercy, and a dynasty that still holds power today. He was feared, admired, hated, worshipped. But one thing is undeniable. John D. Rockefeller didn't just chase the American dream. He bought it. They said he was gone. That when John D. Rockefeller died in 1937, the empire died with him. They were wrong. Because Rockefeller didn't just build a fortune, he built a dynasty. And while his face disappeared from public view, his name became embedded, deep, in the machinery of the modern world. Today, the Rockefeller family is no longer in the headlines, but they are everywhere, and they are still in control. After John D.'s death, his only son, John D. Rockefeller Jr., quietly inherited the reins. But unlike his father, Jr. avoided business wars. He focused on philanthropy, real estate, and global influence. It was he who donated the land for the United Nations headquarters in New York. Not for profit, but for presence. The Rockefellers weren't chasing oil anymore. They were chasing permanence. Today, the family legacy is managed through a dense web of foundations, trusts, and investment firms. The most famous, the Rockefeller Foundation, still active, still powerful. Officially, it's a philanthropic organization. Unofficially, it is a strategic engine, funding global health programs, environmental agendas, genetic research, and economic models across continents. Their reach spans from the World Health Organization to climate finance summits, from Ivy League universities to African agriculture programs. When you hear about billion-dollar plans to reshape energy, food, or medicine, look behind the curtain. You might find the Rockefeller name, quiet, old, and watching. They don't brag. They don't tweet. They move in silence, like the old world aristocracy, but with modern tools. The family, still vast, still wealthy, still private. Over 200 descendants now sit in positions of influence across banking, diplomacy, science, and high-level advisory groups. They aren't kings, they're kingmakers. The dynasty no longer dominates like John D. did, because they don't need to. They own the rules. They don't need to run for office. They don't need to appear in public. Because real power doesn't beg for attention, it writes the rules. And for over a century, the Rockefeller family has done exactly that, not in headlines, but in hidden halls, boardrooms, and global summits where nations take orders, not make them. It began with the Rockefeller Foundation, founded in 1913. Officially, it was charity. But behind the velvet language of health and progress lay a strategy of global leverage. The foundation funded the World Health Organization, the League of Nations, and later the United Nations itself. They weren't just supporting these institutions, they were shaping them, writing their frameworks, choosing their leaders, and setting their agendas. The WHO, modeled directly after Rockefeller-backed health missions. The UN, built on land donated by the family. And today, they still shape global health, climate policy, food system reform, genetic innovation. They fund both the science and the policy, the problem and the solution. That's not charity, that's architecture, global architecture. But there is one more chapter, the darkest of all. Not about money, not about oil, about people. In the early 1900s, the Rockefeller Foundation funded research in eugenics, the belief that the human race could be improved through selective breeding and sterilization. They supported programs in America and even funded labs in Nazi Germany. Yes, Germany, including the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute, where Nazi racial science was born. After World War II, the word eugenics vanished, but the idea did not. It re-emerged as population control, as family planning, as public health, and again, the Rockefellers were at the center. Through the Population Council, they advised the United Nations, funded sterilization campaigns in India, pushed birth control across Latin America and Africa, not for liberation, for management. Today, the words have changed again. Sustainability, global equity, climate health. But the structure remains. Digital ID systems, gene editing, AI-driven monitoring, food control, health passports, all backed, shaped, or piloted by Rockefeller-financed entities, not to serve the people, to shape them. Because this was never just about empire. It was about design, designing society, designing thought, designing the future of life itself. And unless you are writing the blueprint, you are being written into it.